Hello and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove and I am not joined by Taylor Rockwell and his beautiful facial hair today. But fear not, because in Taylor's absence I'll be talking to perhaps the only man in American soccer who has an even better beard. It's Tim Howard. Tim recently started work as a football analyst with Turner Sports and BR Live, working mostly on Turner's Champions League coverage. We talked about goalkeeping in general and what broadcasters often get wrong about goalkeepers. I asked about the current US men's national team goalkeeper situation, what it's like to compete for the number one jersey, and exactly what it is that Tim Howard yells at defenders during games. We also talked about why a lot of professional athletes fail on TV and how Tim plans to avoid doing so. Obviously, Tim Howard is a big-name guest for any show, so we're delighted he could join us. But he was also, in my opinion, a really good guest, very open and honest and relaxed in his answers, and none of the sports cliche stuff that you sometimes get from professionals who have their guard up and don't really want to talk. So I think you'll enjoy this interview. So, Tim, thank you for making the time to join us on the Total Soccer Show. Very much appreciate it.
Good. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
First question is, where are you? I'm going to guess, based on our sort of logistical arrangements, that this is after a Rapids practice?
That's right, yes. I'm home. I'm home, relaxing after practice, getting ready to get some physio.
So I know our listeners love the little details.
Okay.
So maybe can we talk about the physio? Is this like maybe just like a warm down type thing, or is it like treating an injury? What are we doing today?
I'm 39 years old, so I have about 2 or 3 people who I entrust every week to work on my body and keep me in top shape. So this is one of them.
Gotcha.
Yeah, this is one of them.
All right, I'm 38 and a half, so I sympathise. I never get the chance to ask this. I want to ask about practice as well.
Yeah,
just as a quick example, what did you guys work on in practice today that you can share at least?
Yeah, Thursdays is a lot of trying to implement tactics that we want to implement for the game on Saturday, because obviously Friday's training is usually very light and you don't get to touch on that. So today was tactics. We did some finishing at the end, a few small-sided games, just kind of going over our team shape and how we want to operate.
Speaking of team shape, one of the things I always enjoy watching you play is your communication with the outfield players.
Okay.
I would say you're one of the louder communicators with your outfield players. I've always wondered, what is it that you're saying? Is it sort of positional advice? Is it motivational stuff? Is it insults? Like what's going on back there?
All of the above, I think. Some of which I can't share, but look, most of the time, it's I think you have to have a running dialogue. Communication is so key, and in good teams, communication is at its highest. So I'm just trying to be the eyes and ears back there, and I see it where everything's coming from, and I'm trying to alert guys ahead of the play, sometimes right in the midst of the play. And for all of my yelling and my hooting and hollering, there's a ton of good job and well done that go unnoticed. But I'm the first one to praise our guys as well.
All right, so you make sure to keep it positive.
Yeah, of course.
Is part of it keeping yourself alert as well? Because I'm thinking,
yes,
if you were to just kind of stand there as people imagine goalkeepers do, it's easier to switch off. But if you're constantly looking for the danger, then you're more like zeroed in, right?
I that's something I kind of found with myself is, as a young goalkeeper, you're always worrying about concentration, and coaches are saying, got to figure out how to concentrate for longer periods of time. And that was something that helped me, just kind of almost playing every kick of the ball, even when it's not in the defense. I'm saying pass here, pass there. No one can hear me, but it's for my own. I'm almost doing a play-by-play to keep myself in tune.
Yeah, a little maybe like Brad Guzan during the All-Star game.
Yeah, he was mic'd up, wasn't he? Yeah, I don't think you want to mic me up.
I got another goalkeeping question for you.
Yeah.
My feeling is, say people like me who, I do some analysis of games on this show, and I've played outfield at an amateur level my whole life. I feel like I have a better understanding of how outfield stuff works, but less so about goalkeeping. So what is, I guess this leans into the TNT coverage as well.
Yep.
What is the most misunderstood thing about goalkeepers that you hear from fans and from media?
Um, gosh, that's a good question. Look, let's start here at goalkeeping.
Oh, you're going to give me a top 5?
Look, goalkeeping is impossible. It really is. You wish every goal you wish you had back because you're like, I could have got there.
Yeah.
I would honestly say the mental side of the game is so important. When you look at goalkeepers, you look at the top goalkeepers. They're clearly athletic and they're good shot stoppers and all this stuff. But the mental side of the game, the ability to puff your chest out and seem bigger than you are, the ability to make an absolute howler of a blunder and just kind of go, doesn't matter. Next one, I'll make the save, no problem. That's where. Like the names that you think of, the Buffons and Casillas and the great goalkeepers, and today of Courtois and De Gea and Neuer and all these guys, they're not exempt from the fear of making a mistake. They just wear it better. They're just stronger mentally.
Did you have any techniques for when you conceded a goal that you felt at fault for? Do you have any sort of special mental technique to help you move on?
It's not an easy place to be. I'll tell you that. And like I said, every goalkeeper is going to have a few of those over the course of their career if you play long enough. And for me, it was just being my own harshest critic. It was like not trying to play the blame game, but just looking internally and being pissed off at myself. Yeah, the fans are booing, but that's second nature. And the media is going to write about how terrible I am, but that's second. I'm so harsh on myself that that was my technique and my trick. If I could hold myself to a higher standard than anyone else did, then they're implicated.
So then you're not worrying about other people. You're just worrying about yourself.
Yeah. Then their criticism didn't matter.
That makes sense. I want to talk also U.S. national team.
Yeah.
So I know. Correct me if I'm wrong here. Your Rapids contract goes through the end of 2019.
Correct.
And I think you've sort of said that basically that's going to be your last contract, right?
I think so. Yeah.
At the same time, I know you haven't played for the US since the Trinidad game, right?
Sure.
But I was wondering, there was no official I've retired from the national team announcement that I saw.
Yeah.
So do you have one eye on when there's a new permanent US coach playing again for the US national team, or is that chapter closed?
I think it's a good question. It's not one I have an answer to. I think that when I'm done playing football, I'll be done playing football in all aspects, So I don't think I'm going to continue to play football, and if ever I'm selected, that'd be wonderful. But I don't make those decisions anymore. I think there was a time in my career when I could call the shots,
Yeah.
But I'm certain that time is come and gone, and like I said, I'll continue to try and do what I can. I think what I do is pretty damn good. So keep myself fit, try and play well, and then we'll see what happens from there.
And I want to ask you about maybe the other goalkeepers. For example, Zach Steffen seems to be the number one choice right now for Dave Sarachan. And I know you played against him last week, right? Colorado played Columbus. I want to get your sort of expert goalkeeper analysis of him. Is there any specific strength that you see from Steffen that you always think, oh, that's what Zach Steffen does really well?
Well, in terms of the number one, I think there's a big ball fellow down in Atlanta that would have a lot to say about who's the number one goalkeeper in the country at the moment. So I think with this transitional year, I think everybody needs to kind of just calm down and let the dust settle even more, because there's a big part of there's a lot of unknown. New manager comes in and we don't know what's going to happen there. So
right.
In terms of Zach, I think he's got what all top American goalkeepers have. And he's got the athleticism, which is the biggest thing, which is our biggest strength. If you look at Brad Freeland, Keith Keller, myself, and Brad Guzan, he's got those strengths and characteristics. Having said that, there's a lot of goalkeepers who have had that in the past and have failed. So it's a tough one, really, because does he have the tools to make it? He does, but as Casey Keller once told me, in order to judge a goalkeeper, they've got to have 150, 200 games under their belt, because you have to see whether they can sink and swim, during the tough moments. You understand what I'm saying? That's when you really find out about a goalkeeper. So I don't know. I mean, my expertise means nothing until there's a bit of proof in the pudding.
So this ties into what you were telling me earlier about the great goalkeepers, right? So it's almost like you've got to watch them concede some goals to see what they do.
Yeah,
which is a weird paradox for judging a goalkeeper.
Yeah, it is, right? Like it's. I think we've been spoiled in America, and I think the obvious punchline is, hey, you're an American goalkeeper, so you should go to England and you should play. Well, I think that there's been a few goalkeepers to go over and do that, and probably made it look a little bit easier than it actually is, if that makes sense, because it's not easy.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Speaking of that, so I'm guessing you can tell from my accent, I'm originally from the West Midlands in England. Sure. Is there anything particular that you miss about England or about Merseyside?
Yeah, it's funny. I was actually talking to one of my Everton teammates. I talked so fondly and proudly of my time at Everton, and I don't know. That was my life for so long. I mean, I think what I miss the most is between those walls at the Everton training ground and certainly at Goodison Park, there was a lot of special people there. The kitmen, the lunch ladies, the masseurs, the physios, all of my teammates. I mean, just brilliant. The chairman, brilliant people. So I miss that for sure. I've
got two final goalkeeping questions that I want to ask you before we move on to the Champions League.
Sure.
This is actually from my co-host, Taylor. He was really interested to know this. So he's American, and he says that there's this idea that we always talk about in America, that the US produces good goalkeepers. Like, that's the thing we always produce. And he wonders if you think, is that just something that we tell ourselves? Like, does the rest of the world believe that? Or is that just a thing that we've been telling ourselves?
I think it's, again, a bit of both, right? Casey Keller and Brad Friedel went over and had success, and they held their own, and really there wasn't a lot of American players at the time doing that, so it became a thing. And then, Marcus Hammond went over, I went over, Brad Guzan went over. And so I think there was this line of, like, each generation had a goalkeeper to go over, and to kind of play well. Yeah. So I think it became a tagline for us, and rightfully so. But there's been a few generations kind of to skip that, right? Because the next coming, and now, here I am, 39, and no one's really kind of gone over and tested those waters. So the question is a good one. I'm not 100% sure. I don't think the rest of the world goes, hey, these American goalkeepers are amazing. You know what I mean? Like, I think we tell ourselves that because we've had a few to have success over there. But I'm not sure that that's shared by the rest of the world.
No harm in being confident.
No, it's good. Hopefully we can have more. It's a brilliant proving ground to play, certainly in the Premier League.
Another question from Taylor, and this is one that I'm curious about as well.
Sure.
He wants to know about the relationship between goalkeepers when you're competing for the starting spot. So I know, for example, yourself and Brad Guzan were in this situation at one time for the United States. So I'm going to assume that you're going to tell me that it's friendly and you're all working for the team together. Yep. But I'm really interested in how the actual competition manifests itself.
No, listen. If you ask any goalkeeper from this conversation forward, if they tell you anything other that I'm telling you, put them in touch with me and I'll call them a liar. Because here's what happens: you work together each day. You gain a relationship and rapport. There's usually one who's better, right? And I talk about. Like, goalkeepers don't push each other. That's not a thing. You focus on your own performances, and if you get in the team, you have the shirt, you keep the shirt, right? And if the other guy overtakes you, you can't outwork him. You have to hope that he has blunders. You can put it like if there's a number one, and all of a sudden you're amazing in training, they're not going to get put in because the number one is the number one until he makes a few blunders. That being said, every single number two in the world, whether you are now or you have been before, you're hoping the absolute worst for that goalkeeper. You probably hope your team wins. I think they'll probably say, look, I hope we win 4-3 and the other fella has 3 howlers. Because there's no other avenue into the team. You understand what I'm saying? There isn't another. So you have to leave. It's like when Karius made those blunders in the Champions League final last year. I told people, he's done at Liverpool. I said, what do you mean? He's done. He's finished. The crowd will hate him. They'll never trust him. Like, you put him on the bench, and then what? He's going to earn his spot back? How? In training? He's done. He's got to go. Sure enough, he goes on loan. It's just how the goalkeeping world works, and everyone else who tells you different is a liar.
Is it a little different for you at Colorado because you're a senior figure at Colorado Rapids, obviously. So, for example, do you offer tips to Zach McMath that maybe you wouldn't if it was someone who you were neck and neck with in competition for the starting spot?
I mean, look, I think again, I'm happy to offer tips to to anybody who asked the question, because my performances isn't based on whether I give someone else tips or not. My form and my confidence and my swagger comes from my own personal ability and belief. And like I've always said, there's never been a goalkeeper where I've gone, I've got to play better now. Like I always felt like I had to play good to keep my spot. Does that make sense? Like I have my own set of standards. No one else creates those for me.
So it's not so much worrying about other people getting better as just making sure that you stay on top of things.
Yeah, and look, I think it's the age-old adage. Like, I start focusing on how good you're doing or what I need to do. And then I start losing focus of, like, what I'm supposed to do to make myself better. You know what I mean? So, like, yes. I never bought into that.
Hey folks, this is Daryl cutting in to let you know about today's sponsor. Today's show is sponsored by The Athletic. The Athletic covers all kinds of sports, but if I'm honest, I only ever read the soccer section, and it's worth the subscription just for the soccer content, I promise. One thing I should make clear in the interests of full disclosure is that I've also been writing for The Athletic. They have some excellent writers, and I think maybe George Qureshi took sympathy on me and let me write as well. So I have a story published recently all about Leicester City's James Maddison, in which I'm arguing that he is a new type of English number 10. There's also an excellent story by Michael Cayley, who you may know from Double Pivot. Michael really takes a good look at Wolves, my beloved Wolverhampton Wanderers, and their tactical setup. And it's really accurate, first of all. It matches with the way that I think Wolves play, but also explaining why it's been so effective so far and making the argument that they could be potential Europa League qualifiers. Got to admit, I love that story maybe a little more than I should have. There's also a fascinating story from Nando Villa about Florentino Perez, the Real Madrid president, whom Nando argues is really turning into a dictator. And it's not just an accusation that Nando is levelling, he really takes us through the process by which Florentino Perez has undermined the democracy at Real Madrid to make himself all-powerful. It is a fascinating read. If you're interested in subscribing to The Athletic so you can read my Maddison story, Michael's Wolf story, Nando's Perez story, and all kinds of other soccer stories, you can do so with 40% off, a 40% discount if you go to theathletic.com/TSS September. Theathletic.com/TSS September for 40% off. I'm not doing the jingle if Taylor's not here. The link will be in the show notes. 40% off at theathletic.com/TSS September. Now, back to the interview with Tim Howard. We're going to talk about Tim's role at Turner Sports and BR Live and their Champions League coverage. If I've read my media notes correctly, you are going to be you'll be in studio for the Wednesday games, Red Star PSG and Spurs Barcelona for the Champions League.
I believe so. Correct? That's correct, yes.
So here's my first question, my first TNT question. When did you decide to take this role with TNT?
Well, obviously, I know a few people in the television world, and there was just some rumors about Turner and TNT getting the broadcasting rights to the Champions League, and so it was obviously something that appealed to me. Clearly, something that appealed to them, and there was just some conversations, some casual conversations amongst colleagues and friends, and that probably was about a year in the making. And then obviously you can't really do anything until the rights have been secured. And then once that happened, we moved forward with it.
Got it. And then was it logistically a problem, sort of the games being mostly Wednesday afternoon? Like, do you have to talk to Coach Hudson and be sort of, hey, can I take a couple hours on Wednesday?
Well, he's a British manager, and most people know British managers give you Sunday, Wednesday off. So just off the front of that, I was pretty good. But then I had to speak to both parties, and certainly Coach Hudson, and say, look, this is something I'm doing. It's obviously not going to take away from my preparation, my focus, but this is what I would like to do. And then, of course, if he says you guys were bang average on the weekend and you're in all week and you have no days off, then I have got a stumbling block that I have to handle. So, yeah.
So if he says you're in on Wednesday, then Turner Sports will have to find someone to step in.
We're in on Wednesday. Yeah, it's a tough, and they know that as well. And that's part of the challenge with having a current player on the broadcast. But we all went into this eyes wide open, and we're handling it as such.
So I'm really interested in, because obviously this is new for you this season, as I understand it, right? You've not done much television stuff before.
I had covered the Premier League for 3 years between 2013 and 2016. I covered
in studio?
Not in studio. I was in the gantry, but some of it was studio work. So,
right, so it's not completely new.
No, it's not. But it's not.
But I'm really interested in your prep for say the Wednesday games, because obviously you have another full-time job, right?
Sure,
playing in goal in Major League Soccer.
Sure.
Do you will you have time to watch, say, especially say Red Star Belgrade, which is a lesser-known team where you can't obviously just list off the 11, right? So do you have time to do much research before the games come around?
I do. I learned a long time ago. I think that a lot of ex-players fail in television because they just believe that they have all the knowledge and they don't have to work hard. And I was given some very good advice about that. And so I've taken it on board. And look, being a professional footballer isn't all it's cracked up to be. There's plenty of downtime. So, I get my laptop out and I watch games and I take notes and I read a lot of, I have some friends in the industry who have given me pointers and just try and absorb as much soccer information that's on the airwaves as possible. And then, just so that I'm prepared. Do I use all the information? No, but I like to have it for each team. And we obviously get prep notes and those type of things in the week leading up to the game. So I try and match those two things up and see what fits.
One thing I'm really curious about, and you don't have to give me any details if you don't want to, but with something like this, and when you're connected to a big network like Turner, do you have access to more footage than regular civilians? Is there a secret video site where you can go and watch all the Red Star games, for example?
There isn't, but I also, if there's anything, to answer your question, if there's anything I needed or any of us in studio needed ahead of time, we would get it. We would get the footage broken down. We would get whatever it is we need, they would provide for us. So Turner does an absolutely brilliant job in terms of, giving the talent exactly what it is they need to be successful.
Oh, so there's someone on staff who, if you say to them, I want to see all of Thiago Silva's headers from the past 6 months.
Yeah, you could get it.
Someone's job will be to go do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
What happens as well? What happens in studio while the game is happening? Mm-hmm. So I'm assuming it's Wednesday. It'll be yourself. I'm assuming Kate Abdo is hosting.
Yeah.
I know Stu Holden and Steve Nash will be in Los Angeles, right?
That's right. They're in our Los Angeles studio.
You'll be in Atlanta, probably a second host alongside you and Kate. So what are you doing while the game is on? Are you all just watching the TV, sitting there talking? What's the deal?
A little known secret. As soon as the game kicks off, I go to the bathroom, and without fail, someone scores in the first 2 minutes. It's happened every week. So what I usually do is I run to the bathroom just so the whole world can get a goal and we can talk about it.
It's very good of you. Very good of you.
Yeah, you're welcome. We usually jump off. Sometimes we stay on set, but we usually jump off set and we go into the broadcast room where they have a bunch of televisions and we can kind of watch the games unfold side by side simultaneously and take notes if we'd like. Or obviously we're also discussing with production in terms of trying to figure out what it is that will be shown at the break, at halftime, and then second half same thing. What's going to be shown at full time, and just trying to collectively create the best show possible.
Who makes those decisions? Who decides in the 10 minutes or so you have at half time? Is there a producer who recommends okay, here's the 3 things we should be talking about this Spurs-Barcelona game? Or is it sort of a collective, almost democratic decision with yourself and Kate and other people in studio?
Well, this is the great thing. We have some amazing, amazing producers at Turner, but it is very collaborative, right? And so if we don't say anything, they will run with exactly what they think is going to work the best. But if myself or Kate and certainly Stu and Steve Nash in LA say, hey, that's got to be on there, that goal or that tackle or this part of the play needs to be on there, they add it to the footage, and they cut it, and we talk about it. So very collaborative. Yeah.
What's been the hardest part of doing this so far, specifically for the Champions League coverage? Like a skill you've had to learn maybe on the fly.
I don't know. It's funny because I think one of the things that I've learned is just everything is, or I think we get better at as we go along in broadcasting, is everyone wants to be so buttoned up, and realistically, the best broadcasters are simply having a conversation with a friend that's right next to them, and there's no cameras on. So you could you're essentially on your couch talking to your friend about soccer and why did this happen and how did this happen. That's all you're doing. And I think when you first get into the business, it's like very buttoned up, look down the barrel of the camera, don't mess up. Like, it's okay, right? Like, all these things are okay. You don't have to get a name right. You just say, oops, sorry, it was this fella, and it's almost like you're having a casual conversation at a coffee shop. And I think when you start to learn that, you breathe a sigh of relief, you let your hair down a little bit, and you just go.
So it sounds like you'd figured that out a while ago, the way that you're saying that. So was there a moment that you figured out how to do that?
No, I think it's reps. I think television for any ex-athlete or current athlete, in my case, it's just reps. It's repetition, and you get more comfortable with the people you deal with. You gain relationships with them. You understand their cadence and their delivery, and it doesn't happen overnight. It's not like a switch. You get better as you go.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense to me. I did notice the first week. I noticed Oguchi Onyewu seemed maybe a little more tense than some of the people who'd been on there. And he's a guy that is a player that I really liked and a personality that I really like. So I'm wondering if does anyone sort of talk about it afterwards? Like, do you analyze your performance in studio? Maybe the way that you do games.
I think you do, and that was one thing that I wasn't sure. That I would love about television a few years back when I started was like, hey, this is, someone's going to say, hey, well done, or, you need to do better. And sometimes you think, how am I going to take that information on? What's my reaction going to be? And so it is, there's obviously post-production meetings, and, people within the production team will say, hey, this is good, or this can get better. Look, they want you to succeed. It's not like hey, you suck and get out of here. They want you to succeed. Right. And they realize that not every ex-player is a broadcaster. And so they help us along with the way best fits our personality. And look, Oguchi Onyewu has a wealth of experience and a wealth of football knowledge. He's well-spoken. So we all have different personalities. He's not Stuart Holden. He's going to laugh, and he's going to joke, and he's going to rib people. Oguchi Onyewu was very much straight and to the point. And so you kind of have to play to each personality too.
Yeah, my feeling watching Gooch is that it's almost like a talented player who hasn't shown their best yet. So maybe in a week or two we start to see more and more from him.
Absolutely, I have no doubt about that.
Turning to the game specifically, is there anything you're particularly looking forward to see in either the Red Star PSG game or the Spurs Barcelona game?
My goalkeeping idol, Gigi Buffon. I'm looking forward to seeing him and how he, Father Time kicks all of our butts, and he seems to be winning in that boxing match. So, PSG I think is special. With their new Jordan brand and their star players, and I'm looking forward to obviously Red Stars, the minnows, right? And so, how are they going to line up tactically against? What is perceived to be the world beaters, clearly. Barca Tottenham, that's a joke. I mean, that game is going to be up and down, lightning fast. You got, probably 22 players on the pitch who are willing to take the ball in any area of the field. Like, that doesn't happen very often. So that, for our viewers, that's going to be a game where, be glued to the TV because there's something special is going to happen.
All right. I guarantee that I will be doing that. I'll be sitting here in my office watching both of those games. Yeah. Tim, thank you so much for your time today. I know your time's valuable, so I appreciate you spending 30 minutes with us here at the Total Soccer Show.
Well, I appreciate you.
So that was Tim Howard. Hope you enjoyed the interview. If it's your first time in listening to the Total Soccer Show, please hit subscribe. We'll be back on Monday with a new show reviewing all the weekend action. If you're a long-time listener, I want to remind you about our other show, the Top Draw Soccer Show, which we produce in collaboration with topdrawsoccer.com. There's going to be a new episode of the Top Drawer Soccer Show publishing this Friday, in which Top Drawer's Director of Content, Travis Clark, and I take a really good look at young Americans abroad. We're talking, Josh Sargent, Keaton Parks, Jonathan Amon, and maybe some names you haven't even heard of. So please go and find the Top Drawer Soccer Show and give us a listen on Friday. All right, thank you for taking the time to listen to this episode today, and we'll talk to you again very soon.